April 16, 2014, students from Danwon High School in South Korea boarded the Sewol ferry for a class trip to Jeju Island. There were 476 people on board. Most were teenagers. They wore their school uniforms and carried backpacks. Some had cameras. Others had snacks for the journey. They were excited. It was supposed to be a fun field trip. The ferry was 475 feet long. It had been modified to carry more passengers and cargo. The modifications made it less stable. But nobody told the students this. Around 8:48 a.m., the ferry was sailing through the Yellow Sea. The water was calm. Students were in the common areas. Some were eating breakfast. Others were taking selfies and posting on social media. A few were still sleeping in their cabins below deck. At 8:49 a.m., the ferry made a sharp turn. Too sharp that it caused the ship to tilt to one side. Students stumbled and trays slid across the floor. Everyone was in panic. Then, the intercom crackled. A voice told everyone to stay where they were. The students obediently listened. They trusted the crew. But the ship never stopped tilting further. On the other end, the captain and crew members began evacuating. They left first, leaving the passengers aboard. At 9:30 a.m., the ship was already listing at 50 degrees. Students in lower cabins were faced with rising water. The corridors had become steep slopes. Some tried climbing out. Others stayed in their rooms like they'd been told. They were scared, confused. Yet, the water kept rising. Students who tried escaping faced flooded stairwells. The water was dark and cold. Some made it to windows but couldn't break through. Others got stuck in narrow passages as the ship turned on its side. At 10:31 a.m., the Sewol capsized completely. Divers arrived but couldn't get inside immediately. The currents were too strong. When they finally entered, they found students still in their cabins, still wearing their uniforms. Some were holding hands. Others had their life jackets on, but had never left their rooms. 304 people had died, most of whom were students from Danwon High School. Only 172 survived. Shoes and backpacks later washed up on shore. The captain was later arrested and sentenced to life in prison. Mount Hood Incident. On May 12, 1986, 19 students and staff from Oregon Episcopal School gathered at Timberline Lodge on Mount Hood. They were there for base camp, a required outdoor education program. The students were excited. Most had never climbed a mountain before. The group included experienced climbers and teachers. The weather forecast looked good. They planned to climb to the summit and back in one day. The morning was clear and cold. Students wore field jackets and carried backpacks. Some joked and laughed as they hiked. Others were quiet, focusing on the climb ahead. By afternoon, they'd reached higher elevations. The weather was still clear. Everything felt perfect. Then suddenly the conditions changed. Clouds rolled in fast. Wind speeds increased. Visibility dropped. What had been a clear mountain became a white wall of blowing snow. The group tried to descend, but the whiteout made navigation nearly impossible. They couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. The wind was so loud they had to shout to hear each other. The temperature was dropping. Students huddled together trying to stay warm. Some were already showing signs of hypothermia, shivering, confused, moving slowly. The leaders tried to radio for help, but the storm interfered with transmission. Their calls didn't get through. Night fell. The temperature dropped to 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind speeds hit 100 miles per hour. Students dug into the snow trying to create shelter. The storm lasted through the night. Students in light jackets faced brutal cold. Frostbite set in. Hypothermia took hold. Rescuers tried reaching them, but the storm was too severe. Helicopters couldn't fly. Ground teams couldn't move in the whiteout. By morning, the storm had passed. Rescue teams found the survivors first. Then they found the others. Bodies curled near rocks. Clothing became stiff with ice. Some students had been only yards from safety, but couldn't see through the storm. 9 people died. 7 students and 2 adults. They froze to death on a school trip that was supposed to teach them outdoor skills. Yanga bus tragedy. On August 3, 1991, students from St. Kilian's Mission School piled onto buses for a sports day trip at Regina Coeli School in Zimbabwe. It was a beautiful morning. The kids were loud and excited. They'd spent the day competing in games, running races, playing football, and laughing with friends. Around 82 school children were on the buses heading home. They were tired but happy. Some had won medals. Others compared bruises from the day's activities. The bus was full of chatter and singing. The route moved through the mountains near Nyanga, 180 miles southeast of Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. Beautiful scenery, sharp curves, steep drops. The bus was moving fast. Too fast for the winding roads. Some students noticed. A few felt nervous as the bus swayed around corners. Teachers told the driver to slow down. He didn't listen. The bus approached another curve. At that moment, the driver hit the brakes, but it was too late. The bus rolled off the road down the hillside. Students screamed. Bodies tumbled inside. Windows shattered. When it finally stopped, the wreckage was catastrophic. The bus had been torn apart. Bodies were scattered across the slope. Sports equipment lay everywhere. Survivors crawled out. Some were in shock. Others screamed for help. The smell of petrol filled the air. A few students tried helping their friends but couldn't move them. Too much blood. Too many injuries. Rescue took hours. The crash site was a remote rural valley. There were limited emergency services. The accident claimed the lives of 89 people. 82 were school children. Kids who'd been celebrating just hours earlier are now gone because a driver wouldn't slow down.